Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Sideboard Files here on HEDRON.TV. My name is Manuel, I'm your host, and I'm glad to have here for the first time on the show, Leonard Tetzlaff. Hello there.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And I'm very happy to have you here because you are a limited player. You also mostly. You also have a Pro Tour experience already under your belt, but you also play quite a lot of Legacy.
Indeed, yes.
And that's why you're here, because I like to talk about Legacy. I need good players who have some interesting Legacy knowledge to share. Your Legacy deck of choice is Death and Taxes.
Yes, it is and has always been.
Always been. We're talking about you playing Death and Taxes for how long?
Since I started playing Legacy, I think that should be 4 or 5 years ago. And
okay.
It looked nice. I saw it on the stream. It looked nice. I built it, played it ever since. So yeah.
And never looked back.
No, never looked back.
Okay.
It's always been good in my experience. So why change?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So your deck of choice, Death and Taxes, and we're going to have a close look to your sideboard configuration. But first, I would like to have a look at the main deck as well.
Okay.
So let's have a look at your list. Your list, I mean, the core is all there.
Yes.
So, I mean, I assume that people who know Legacy know already what the core of Death and Taxes is. I would like to talk about the flexi slots instead, and basically the design under your build, I would say. Because I see a couple of Recruiter of the Guards and I see a couple of one-off creatures. Mm-hmm. So that's more or less the direction you want to go with your version of Death and Taxes.
Yes, I think that playing Recruiters and some tutor targets is fairly standard, except for some very aggressive versions at the moment. And one of the main differences I see between my list and other mono white lists is that I'm still playing the Serra Avengers. A lot of people are not playing Serra Avengers anymore. Mm-hmm. But since the most played deck at the moment is Grixis Delver, and the Avengers are so good against the Pyromancers, and they can also trade with the Delver. So I think it is correct to play at least 2 of them at the moment.
Okay, so you want to have those?
I want to have those, yes.
Then we have like one Sanctum Prelate.
Yes, I definitely need this. I don't see how people can skip on the Sanctum Prelate. It's so good in a lot of different matchups. It often outright wins games. For example, a Prelate on 2 against lands is often just game over in a otherwise very difficult matchup. So yeah, definitely need the Prelate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've seen a few versions play in like different numbers of Cavern of Souls.
Yes.
You play only one.
Yes, and I'm not even sure. I play this one mainly because I have always played it. And I think, especially if you're playing Serra Avengers, Cavern of Souls really hurt your double white mana requirement. A lot of people play more Cavern because they want to bring in Pontiff from the sideboard. And Cavern can help them with that. Also, the red version, of course, needs to play more Caverns. I like having one just in case against counter spells, but it might even be wrong. Same with the One Horizon Canopy. Those are just relics because I have always played them. I'm not sure if they are better than Plains, to be honest, but I like them. So
okay, I see your point. You say you might be wrong, but to me it's more about actually what kind of version of the deck you want to play. I mean, you don't play the red splash.
No.
You don't play like whole human creatures. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense to me not having too many Cavern of Souls. You don't really need them.
Yes. You should have 1 or 0 in this list. I'm fairly certain, and I got used to 1. I play it. I like it.
Okay. Could we define your list more control-ish rather than others?
Definitely. I only have 1. I think the more aggressive versions play more Mirren Crusaders and also more Avengers. And I mainly have the Avengers as a defensive tool against Pyromancer and Delver, so I'm not really an aggressive version.
Okay. You want to be in the control role with this list.
Yes.
Yeah, Palace Jailer is another card, for instance, that is more.
Yeah, I win the long game with the Jailer.
Yeah, you want to play the long game with this deck.
Yes, almost always. There are some decks that win the long game against you, but mostly you are the late game deck.
Okay, good. Anything else you would like to say about the main deck?
Only that I'm very happy with the list at the moment, and I think it's especially if you're experiencing creature heavy meta, as I'm doing at the moment. It is a very good main deck.
You're playing a lot of Lion.
Yeah, I played some online. I played a lot in the local store meta and with friends, and see a lot of Delver decks, a lot of Mirrors, and a lot of Eldrazi decks also. So yeah, if you have a creature heavy meta, this is a very good list.
This is the list to go for.
Yes, at least for me.
Excellent. So let's start talking about this sideboard. Sure. We have it right here. So 2 Aethersworn Canonist, 2 Rest in Peace, 1 Fairy Macabre, 1 Surgical Extraction, 1 Gideon Alliance Zendikar, 1 Leonin, because this is German, I can't...
Relic Warder, yeah.
Relic Warder, thank you very much. 1 Sanctum Prelate, 1 Containment Priest, 2 Council's Judgment, and 3 Path to Exile. So, generally speaking, what kind of sideboard do we have here? Is it a sideboard that helps you for the bad matchups? Is it a sideboard that is tuned for a particular metagame that you expect? Or is it something else? You tell me.
Yeah, part of it is just generally the cards. A lot of those cards you will recognize from other sideboards in Death and Taxes. Those are just very good value for single sideboard slots. So, like the Rest in Peace or the Canonists, you see them, or even the Council of Judgment and Gideon, you see them in most sideboards. The part that I would say is tuned for a particular metagame is me playing. I play no Mindbreak traps. Storm is basically non-existent at the moment in my local metagame. And as I said, I see a lot of creature decks, so I opt to play 3 Path of Exile. Path to Exile. I think I would always play at least 2, but the third one is up for debate. So, for example, if you are playing in a meta with not so many creatures and some Storm decks, you could cut 1 Path to Exile and the Gideon, for example, for 2 Mindbreak traps.
Okay.
Or if you're playing in a very control-heavy meta, take out 1 Path to Exile, play an Elspeth, or even a second Gideon, but I prefer the Elspeth mainly because of the different name against needle attacks. Stuff like that.
Okay, but we have a sideboard that is tuned for a specific metagame that you expect heavily creature-based.
Yes.
We can say that.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Anything else you would like to say about specific cards?
Yes, for example, this Fairy Macabre Surgical Extraction split. I'm a huge fan of the Surgical Extraction. I think it in a vacuum it is much better than Fairy Macabre, but you want the Fairy you can tutor with your recruiters, so I think having the split is actually correct. And also, even though I just said I'm not expecting any Storm, I'm still playing the Canonists. I don't want to be left completely open, and it is also very good against Elves, against Infect, against Omnitel, against some different decks. It's always it's just a high value slot, I would say, having the Canonist in there. Anything else unusual? I think the Relic Warder, Leonin Relic Warder is
not so common.
Not so common. I really like it. I think you can tutor it, of course, with a recruiter, which is always very important. You need an answer for Umezawa's Jitte. Before, I used to play Manriki Guzari, but especially in the mirror match, you Stoneforge Mystics often want to find your own Jitte, and you can find the Relic Warder with a recruiter. And also, against shown talent to Omniscience, you can just bring on your Relic Warder and take their Omniscience and stuff like that. I think it's just very flexible. It's just 1 slot. You can tutor for it. It's a good card.
Yeah, sure. You have actually several targets here that can be recruited with Recruiter of the Guard.
Yes.
So your sideboard is really dependent on your main deck configuration because you have this like toolbox somehow designed in your Death and Taxes build.
Yeah, and I think this is very important. A long time ago, before the Recruiter was printed, I used to run the Enlightened Tutor in my sideboard because you don't have Brainstorms, you don't have any search effects, you need to make your sideboard slots count. And I think the only way you can do that and reliably draw them is with some kind of tutor effect.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm very impressed actually about this card. I mean, I actually like the idea that you just explained before, being able to use Stoneforge to go for your Jitte, because Jitte is like the card that makes you win the game, and having another resource actually to go for, instead of having to use Stoneforge for Mariki Guzari and, let's say, waste a bit the chance to get your winning card onto the battlefield.
Yeah. That's one of the considerations on going for the Leonin Relic Warder instead of the Manriki.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if there's nothing else that you would like to add, we could just go for the second segment of this video, or even third, depending on where you say it, and talk about one specific matchup, the Mirror.
Okay.
Because the Mirror is pretty complex.
Yes, it's quite a complicated matchup. I enjoy playing it, I would say, more than any other matchup in Legacy. It always feels like you have a lot of decisions, and when you lose, most of the time, you can point to the point where you lost the game, which is quite interesting for learning, which is
very good.
Fun. Yeah.
So, generally speaking, before we go with the cyber plans, specific, what you board in and what you board out, what are your objectives actually in the Mirror in the post-cyber games?
Yeah, the main thing is always don't lose to Umezawa's Jitte. That happens very quickly. Usually, as soon as your opponent connects once, you lost the game.
Okay.
So you basically need to contain the possibility of an opposing Jitte, try to get your own Jitte online while not wasting too many resources on both of these things. So most of the time I win is because my opponent is really all in on connecting with the Jitte, and then, for example, one well-timed Flicker Wisp out of a vial, removing the Jitte or removing the attacker, and you are so far ahead on tempo that you can win like that. So usually it's not really decided with the JIT, but the JIT warps how both players have to play the game, because that is the one most important thing. So yeah, my sideboard is also basically tuned to prevent getting killed by JIT, but also to prevent getting just out-tempoed or out-card advantage, both of which are real possibilities in the
Okay.
matchup.
So one objective, prevent your opponent from connecting the jitter and win the game with it.
Yes.
Other
That is-
objectives? Other
Yeah.
objectives, sorry?
Yeah, so one of the things that really help you or would prevent you from winning the game is the Mother of Runes. In both cases, it makes it really hard to stop the opposing JIT. It makes it really hard to connect with your own. So Mother of Runes always needs to die on site. It's one of the most
Okay.
important cards in the matchup.
Okay.
And also use your Revoker smart. I mean, all of your Revokers are double-edged swords. They shut off your own cards as well as your opponent cards. But they are very important because the strongest cards, JIT, Vial, and Mother of Runes, all get shut off by Revokers. So use your own Revokers wisely, flicker your own Revokers to change their named card, kill your own Revokers if it's convenient, just make smart use of them. It's really important.
Okay. Okay. So the sideboard plans, I guess on the play on the draw is the same. I don't think there is any
basically.
difference. Do you have always the same plan, or does it change depending on what kind of Death and Taxes version you are actually facing? Because you play mono white,
Yes.
where you could actually be paired against white with red splash.
Yes, I would very much like that. The red splash is not really helpful in the mirror.
Okay.
So, I mean, they have the Magus of the Moons, which are not really doing much, and they have this Direfleet Daredevils. Some of them have them,
Yeah.
which are not doing anything. And Pia and Kiron are quite good, but I think you are ahead in the.
So you're favored actually when
I'm
you're
favored
paired
against the red version,
mono
pretty
and-
sure.
in the white-red version.
Yes.
Okay, and your plan is the same, or do
My
we
plan is
have...
basically the same. and
Okay.
their plan is
Okay.
the same as well, I think.
Okay, very good. So we can actually start talking about sideboard plans
Yes.
in depth, what you side out and what you side in.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's go for it. So what goes out?
Yeah, of course, all the Talias go out. They hurt you just as much as they hurt your opponent. They can be bounced by your opponent's Karakas. They are just a very weak creature in this matchup. And I also take out the Mirren Crusaders. His colors of protection are not relevant in the matchup, and it's not a bad card. I mean, it carries an equipment better than any other creature you have, but if you have an equipment equipped to a creature that you can attack with, you have usually won the game. So the Crusader is win more. In this case, also the Sanctum Prelate is of course terrible in the matchup. Same case as with Thalia, it hurts you just as much as it hurts your opponent, which is not very much in both cases. So yeah, I take those out. Those are 6 card, and with the current configuration, I can bring in the 3 Path to Exiles,
Yeah.
which while you really don't like giving your opponent free planes, you have to stop Mother of Runes, and that's the most important thing. And you have to stop creatures that are equipped by JIT, so more removal is always important. I also bring in the Council's Judgment and the Relic Warder. Depending on your exact configurations, also cards that you can bring in is the Gideon. It's quite good. And the Containment Priest, a double-edged sword again, like a lot of things in the mirror, but it stops stuff jumping out of vials. And if you flicker stuff with the Containment Priest active, it just dies. So, yeah.
So, okay.
Those are options,
yeah.
but at the moment with the current configuration, I'm only bringing in these 6 cards.
Yeah, okay. So the 3 Path to Exile, 2 Council Judgment, and 1 Leonin,
Yes.
whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Because I forgot.
And this is, it's very much all in on not getting your opponent's Mother or JT to stick.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. Those 2 targets.
Yeah.
Umezawa's JIT and Mother of Runes, make sure that you have an advantage, that you get an edge.
Yes.
Because otherwise things can really snowball, get out of control, and you are going to lose the game.
Yeah.
And of course you have to, let's say, get your plan together to win the game.
Exactly.
Is it a game that you want to win fast in the mirror, or is it still going to be a long, grindy game?
I think it depends mostly on both of your opening draws, but most of the time it will be a long, grindy game. That's why I can totally see shaving some more stuff to make room for the Gideon, for example.
Okay.
I personally really like not hedging that much for these long, drawn-out games, but making sure you don't lose to a quick JT or Mother. And prefer that, but there is something to be said to really plan for the long, grindy game. That those will often happen, but usually it's not the grindy game where it's a drawn-out top deck war and you're just waiting to find something good, but usually it's a very stalled board with several Revokers shutting off several other key cards, and it's a really complicated board state, and you have to navigate that.
Okay. Anything else you would like to add?
You should always make sure to not let your opponent know if something is good or bad for you. For example, with the whole JT stuff, you have a lot of options to stop it, but if you look really scared when your opponent is playing or searching for his JT, and then he will equip it and he will go for it.
Okay.
And I would just try to keep a poker face in the mirror match of all the time, especially if you have a vial active.
So try to say to control a bit yourself and give the less clues that you can.
Yes.
To make sure that they're not really 100% safe. Well, actually not safe, but convinced that their plan is working.
Yes. And also on the reverse, always try to read your opponent. And if you can see in his face that something you just did is very good or very bad for him, then adjust your plan accordingly.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Excellent. So I think we reached the end of the episode then. So thank you very much, Leonard, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I'm going to invite you again because I would like to do soon enough a sort of sideboard guide for Death and Taxes. Because we talked about Mirror this time, but there are, of course, more matchups to talk about.
Sure.
So that will be absolutely interesting and nice if you can make it again.
Yep.
And I have the feeling that you will be back.
I think so, yeah.
All right. Fantastic. So thank you again, Leonard. And a big thank you to all of you who've been watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, facebook.com/HEDRON.TV, twitter.com/HEDRON.TV. And of course, stay tuned on HEDRON.TV for more content to come. For now, it's goodbye.